And joining me now is Dahlia, a political analyst and fellow at the Century Foundation, a non-partisan think tank. Thank you so much for talking with us.
Thank you for having me.
So what is likely to be taking place right now behind closed doors in the wake of Netanyahu's failure to form a new governing coalition? And who will President Rivlin likely select to get this done?
Well, everybody's trying to think of some unexpected scenario, but the truth is there aren't that many options. At this point, the president by law would have the option, as your reporter pointed out, of tapping the head of the second largest party in Knesset, the centrist party Yair Lapid, or going to the Knesset and asking the members of Knesset to recommend any other member of Knesset, the parliament, with a majority of 61 seats. That second option is very unlikely. It looks most likely that the president will tap Yair Lapid, and that's simply because there have been feverish discussions over the last couple of days between Yair Lapid and Naftali Bennett, the other person who was mentioned, who had been wavering between the two options, Netanyahu's coalition or what they're calling a change coalition. And they have communicated that Lapid and Bennett have worked out many of the details of a possible coalition. It would look strange for the president to tap Naftali Bennett because he only has 7 seats. That means if Yair Lapid is tapped, and we should know this fairly soon, theoretically the president has 3 days, but he has asked the party leaders to make their recommendations until 2 o'clock this afternoon. In that case, Yair Lapid would be leading the formation of the government, but they have also communicated that he's likely to offer Bennett to have the first shot at being prime minister because of this strange situation that we have been going through of the paralysis of the political system.
And if they can't get this done, whoever is tapped in the end, how will Israel's political deadlock get resolved? The country can't keep holding elections that will obviously deliver the same result. So how does it find a way out of this madness?
Well, apparently nobody has told that to the political leadership because that's what we have been doing for the last 2 years. Again, there is this other option of going to the Knesset, the parliament, and asking for 61 recommendations for somebody else, and that person can be anybody else from the parliament. But so far, that looks extremely unlikely. And if that fails, Israel will be going into a 5th election. I mean, it is a very extraordinary situation. The country is under a paralysis also not only of the political coalition building, but of leadership. There's been no permanent government since the end of 2018 at this point. We have been living under interim governments. We have not had a permanent budget. And the only way out is for the political leadership to make significant compromises or for Mr. Netanyahu to heed the calls for him to step down. And so far, he has been very unlikely to do that. He is a political fighter. He's been called many things: a fighter, a magician, a wizard, a chess player. So far, none of those names have helped him. And until he realizes that the political system is increasingly against him, we have to remember the reason we are in the current situation is because the right-wing parties themselves have broken over Netanyahu. They could have 72 seats as a strong majority out of the 120 seats in the Knesset, but because 2 of those parties, representing 13 seats, will not go into a coalition with him, that's why he's unable to form a government.
And why do you think they refused to do that? Why did he fail, Netanyahu? And what does this signal for his political future?
Well, this really depends on which analysis you believe. If you believe what the leaders of those 2 right-wing parties who have broken with Netanyahu are saying, and we can increasingly add a 3rd party, that's Naftali Bennett's party with another 7 seats, they are saying he's been in power too long, he is under indictment, he is currently standing trial, his trial reopened yesterday, on 3 counts of corruption, and that's not an appropriate leadership for the country. And that is their reasoning, at least in public. Of course, the private analysis, people who think that they know what's going on inside politicians' heads, believe that this is a matter of personal competition and that they think that Netanyahu has been around too long, that it's time to hand over the leadership of the Israeli right-wing parties to a young guard of new leaders. A number of these people who lead these right-wing parties have grown up under Netanyahu's tutelage. They were senior figures in his cabinet in previous years, or the head of his office. So, many of them he has been the patron for many of them, and they've grown up under him, and they think that it's time for them to be to have the leadership now. That is one other possibility. Netanyahu's future, like that of every politician, is eventually to leave the political scene.
Right.
The only question is how much longer he can hang on.
We shall see. Of course, Dahlia, thank you so much for your analysis.